Good morning. I'm your host for this morning's webinar, the CA2E Roadmap in the Modern World. My name is Mark O'Brien of Synon First Group. Thanks again for registering for today's highly anticipated webinar on the future of CA2E and Roadmap by Senior Principal Product Manager Steve Solomon. Steve is a seasoned CA professional who joined our community in April of this year, but he's already making significant progress to having CA2E business conversations with each and every one of you. We do have a few polling questions that we're going to present throughout this morning's webinar. We'd like you to respond to each of them, and we really appreciate your feedback because we know how important these topics are for both you and our community. The last 2 minutes of the webinar are going to be a specific ask to our audience members and where they would like to take today's conversation. But first I've got a little icebreaker for you, and let's make sure everybody's mouse is working. Our first question this morning is a simple one. What is your current version of CA2E? Please select one. 8.7, 8.6, 8.5, older than 8.5, or if you're really confused, what is 2E? While we're tracking the audience responses to question number one, I want to call your attention to the panel to the right that has a questions section in the chat box. You can write your challenging questions in that spot. We will track and record those because we're going to have a detailed Q&A with both of our speakers after speaking this morning. And also, if you're more of a Plex person or your company has both Plex and 2E, this is not designed to be the best webinar for you. However, CA Plex 7.2.1 is already downloadable in beta format, and we're going to have a webinar about that and other Plex topics in a few weeks' time, which will be Tuesday, August 23rd, same time as right now, 11 a.m. EDT. We're going to send a link out for that follow-on webinar in our follow-on email to each and every one of you. So, anyway, Steve, it looks like about a third of our audience members are on 8.7, the latest release. 29%, slightly fewer, are 8.6, but about 62% on both of them. 20% are on 8.5, which has technically been end of life since November of last year, and then 10% older and so forth. So at this point, I'd like to turn over my microphone to Steve Solomon, who's going to tell you about the roadmap.
Good day, everybody. Hopefully everybody can see my screen, and we're going to go right along. So in the 4 months that I've been your product manager, I've been working in the CA's products that are model-based development tools, or the old CASE tools. So I'm product manager for Gen and CA Plex and CA2E. And in June, we launched a major CA Gen release. In July, we are in the middle of customer validation of CA Plex 7.2.1 that Mark referred to about that it is in customer validation, and it does look like hopefully we're going to be on schedule to go GA soon with that product. So it's been a very busy time. And so we've changed focus now, and we said, okay, what is in the 2E backlog? Let's go through the list. Let's start prioritizing. Let's start discussing them. Now realize that I am not a IBMI person. And by the way, if you call the product Synon, I'll call it an AS400. So there's quite a bit of learning that I have to do in the communications to be able to answer questions and look at the backlog. So what I have really relied on is VJ. VJ is your product owner, and we are an Agile shop, and I'm going to talk about that during this presentation. And so your product owner does control the product backlog and help do the prioritization, and then I help steer the general strategy. So please, go to the next one of the agenda. So in today's presentation, we're going to talk about CA2E. We're going to talk about how CA does Agile and how you can be part of the process, because the customer validation project that's going on with Plex today, we're going to have to do with 2E, and I need you to be part of that process. Otherwise, I can't release the new version. So CA has hard and fast rules. If customers don't test it, they don't approve it, we can't release it. So, we do want you to be part of the process. We want to show you what we're doing in a regular cadence, and we want your feedback. So during the presentation, we're going to talk about the 8.7 release. We're going to talk about the 2E futures and some of the questions that I have received so far. So next, please. So the very first thing that typically comes up next is a long disclaimer. So this is going to be a CA standard disclaimer that says, look, we're giving you our best intentions of the information that we have today. That says the disclaimer that before you go make business decisions on it, reach out to us and let's have a one-on-one meeting and let's give you an update. So, we spent a lot of time putting together the roadmap and the presentation, but things constantly change in an agile world. So just realize that we're trying to be honest and give us our, the best vision that we have of the future today, but all futures are subject to change. On CA, so CA or CA Technologies, the former Computer Associates, we are a company that is focused on software. We don't do hardware, and we're focused on helping companies become software companies. And if you think about it, all companies are becoming software companies. And so our tagline, and since a lot of you that may be on the phone don't deal with CA on a regular basis other than with 2E or Plex, I just wanted to give you a couple of overview points about CA. And this is what we do, is help you drive your business faster, further, and modernize it by supporting software development. And our taglines are business rewritten by software, that even automotive companies now have huge engineering and software divisions. Next, please. We went out to a lot of our large customers, and CA has several large customers around the world, and even those customers are coming back. And even Nike, who makes shoes, says that software is key to their business. If you think about Amazon, Amazon is mostly a software company. They sell stuff for the internet, they provide all the web services, but they enable their entire business through software. Tesco, for those folks in EMEA, is a large grocery store. Even they are coming back and saying that software is the key. GE, General Electric, that makes everything from trains to jet engines, has even created a GE software division, and even they realize that the Internet of Things, or IoT of the future, is all about software. So think about it, that if you think your company is an insurance company or a banking company, really you're a software company, and if you start thinking about it in that direction, you'll start understanding why we're making the decisions at CA that we are, and it's to help you drive your business further, faster, and to support more people and drive more revenue. Next slide, please. So what do we do here at CA, and how do we do that? CA has about 11,600 people around the world. We are a global company, so we do span the world with our sales support organizations. So hopefully that the support that you've been using, and a lot of the 2E customers, there's a gentleman named Steve Dunk out of the UK that is absolutely there and is one of the guys that have been with 2E for a long time. So we have a lot of high-quality people that are supporting the product, folks that have been working on 2E and engineering in our ITC team, which is in India, supporting 2E and working on releases there, and a lot of committed individuals. Next slide, please. So what do we do as a business? We help companies with their software projects and operations, maintenance, large data centers. So we spend more than $1 billion a year on designing and supporting software. That is a lot of money. And you think about it, we're a $4 billion a year company. 25% of our investment as a company goes into the research, the development. We also spend on acquisitions. We also bring in companies like Rally, which is the CA Agile Central product, to help companies manage their agile processes. So we both do organic development, where we spend a lot of money with our engineering teams around the world on the products that we support, and actually we have more than 400, so it's a large company with a lot of different products with a lot of different solutions. But we also go out and we look at companies that will help us also move to the next generation. Rally with Agile Central to manage Agile. We have an APIM management solution that we acquired that is absolutely phenomenal if you're looking for a middleware API management solution. So we're not just a model-based development software company. It's everything across the board, from agile management to testing management to how do you test with large data management and across the board. So just a little bit on what we do as a company. We have a lot of large customers and a lot of small customers spanning the world. It's actually pretty interesting. I think I've spoken to somebody on every continent in the last 4 months, at least once a month, as different customers are coming up with different suggestions, enhancements. How do we integrate these products into solutions? You know, what do you need to have your business go forward? And when we meet, if you guys have a one-on-one meeting with me, it really helps me to understand what is the direction your company is taking. If you say, oh, we're happy with 2.8 where it is, then, you know, there's not much I can do for you. But if you say, hey, we're going to go this direction, we want to explore this, we want to do this, we think we want to do that, that helps me know how to set the priorities for the product direction. So it's kind of important that the big and the small, we all get in here and we talk about, okay, where are we going as an industry, where are we going as technology, and what do we need to be successful? Next slide, please. All right. So who's your team? So one of the challenges that I received, and received a lot of negative feedback, is that we haven't been outbound as communicative as an organization, that there was a gap. I'll be realistic, there was a gap of many months between product managers on this team in this role. It is a difficult position because of the number of products and the number of platforms. So I have everything from IBM I to ZOS to distributed, which is the Linux Unix, to HP Nonstop. The technology that these products generate code for is phenomenal. And I've been in IT for more than 30 years, and I even have a tough time keeping up with all the different platforms and all of the different discussions and terminology. So if I slip and use some of the historical names, you'll understand why. But Vijay, as I mentioned, is your product owner. He's on the call today. Ravindra is the director of the engineering team that manages this. You guys are welcome to email us, call us. You're welcome to communicate with us as part of our Agile management plan at CA. We want you to be involved with us. Dana Bordeaux is my director. Dana joined us from IBM this year and is helping focus our product directions across the board on all of our application dev and test products that are in our business unit. So we are attached to the mainframe business unit. Don't get confused when we're saying mainframe. What we have is we have logical groups of applications and products, and then we have to report into 2 organizations, and they all report into 2 at the top on how we do our financial reporting. The distributed side that does performance management, infrastructure management and such, and agile management, and then all of the hardcore development tools on the application side are rolled up in this BU. So as a team, we're out here to support you, willing to meet with you, communicate with you. What can we do to help you make your businesses successful? Next slide, please. All right. How do we do development in CA? So there's a couple of things that are really, really important. And so I've been posting these in communities. If you're not in the community and you're not seeing my post, you're not keeping up with what's going on, is that there's a couple of key things that we do. If you want an enhancement request, it's no longer call your support team and talk to Steve Duncan and say, hey, I have this, and it will go into something that we used to call DARS, or Development Action Request. What it is an idea in the community. And I heard from a lot of folks is they stopped putting in ideas because nobody was looking at the ideas. Well, I can absolutely tell you, as part of this focus for this release, I have been going through every single idea. I have pulled out spreadsheets of them. We've been communicating with our product owner and our engineering architect, and we said, okay, what are the things that are logical groupings that we can do? What's a thumbs up? What's a thumbs down? How do we make this happen? Your input into the ideas is critical. But I'll also tell you that even if you don't have an idea, as a customer, if you are supporting 2E and are intending to stay on it and or move to Plex, you need to be part of this community, and you need to go in and vote on those ideas. The greatest idea in the world, if it gets 3 customer votes, it's probably not going to make it high on the priority list. As a matter of fact, if it doesn't have at least 10 votes, it's probably not going to make it on the backlog list at all. It will still be out there for consideration. Now, if I go out and I mark something as not planned and you think it's absolutely critical to your business, that's okay. Let me know. Go in and post the comments in there and update it as such. Let me know that, hey, this may not be right, or that it may not be described correctly. So one of the things that I have a challenge with in the Plex and 2E community is there's a lot of people who have been using it for a lot of years. They put out their ideas, and it's, hey, we got to do a PI/RI/conversion to enable web. It may mean something to you, but it doesn't mean much to me or a lot of the other writers. So the one thing I'm going to ask everybody is when you post your ideas, say, what is it that you're looking for? What is the problem you're trying to solve, and what's the benefit of by doing it? So simply typing in an idea isn't necessarily going to sell your idea to bump it to the top of the stack. So what is it? Why do you need it, and how is it going to improve your business? Those really help in the prioritization, and they also help in getting votes. So you remember, we are an Agile, we respond to our customers, and that voting process is critically important. We have been using our validate@ca.com site, which is our customer validation portal, for Plex 7.2.1. If you'd like to see how it works, you're welcome to go sign up. Sign up for the Plex, and you'll start getting the emails. You'll see the process. As soon as we start development on the next release of 2E871, we're going to bring up that community, and we're going to start enrolling customers in that. That is how you get direct and live feedback into the engineering team on the development process. The expectation is we'll be doing a monthly webcast. We'll show you what we built, what the status of the release is, and we'll solicit your feedback. Now, we do realize we're living in a global world, and that the time that we do these may be not in your time zone, but that's okay. What we will try to do is to always record them and post them into the site, and so you'll also get an email when the recording is posted, and you can watch it, and then you can post your comments. So in the Validate community, there are things to report defects, put suggestions for improvements, and also a documentation folder where we can post all the recordings and have that information on you. So that's the best way to influence our roadmap, is make sure your ideas are in the community, that they're well documented and of business value, and that you participate in the regular monthly review process. Next, please. So this is the ideas. This is what we're talking about, the communities. Where the communities are, the ideas are put under ideas. There should be something on the slide that says that, if there are less than 10 votes, it's not going to get a lot of vision for me on this. That, if we can't get 10 customers out of hundreds to give a thumbs up for an idea, it doesn't make it high on the priority list, so please make sure that you post them. When you do use them, use the light bulb, which is the ideas category under content. So that's the important thing to view here. Page down, please, or next. So I mentioned Agile at the beginning of the session. So CA follows the SAFe Agile methodology, which is much more than Scrum, much more than Kanban. And so how do we organize large scales of development teams? How do we do Scrum teams upon Scrum teams? And how do we allocate budget, and who does what? And how do we allocate our engineering resources? As I mentioned, there's more than $1 billion in new development and support. So how do we organize the engineering side of that spend? And so as part of this, if you want to know how we work and how the process works, and if you're investigating SAFe, we have a lot of folks that are SAFe Agilists now at CA. We'd be happy to talk to you about SAFe, how we use it, how we follow the process. There are definitive roles. Some of it answers the Agile question that always comes up if you're not in SAFe is, well, what's the difference between a product manager and a product owner? And then what does a Scrum Master do? So if you're curious about SAFe, I do highly recommend you go out to the Scale to Agile Framework website. This diagram is there, and each of these icons is enabled. So if you want to know what a product owner does, you click on that. And according to SAFe, a product owner does this. It is very effective. I've been using SAFe in my previous teams for 1.5 years, and it does take some learning, just like moving to Agile takes some learning, but it has proved to be very beneficial. So if you guys are interested in a process, and for those of you that are going to be part of our validation community, you're going to hear more and more about this, and we'll start using the SAFe terms more and more, but it is important. And if you are thinking of using SAFe in your own development, and you're thinking of using some Agile processes, I'm always happy to have a call with you and talk with you and your management about how we do development here at CA. Next slide, please. Okay. Yes, if you are on 8.5, and thank you guys for being honest about the customers who are on the previous releases. If you're not on the current releases of 2E, I don't know what I can do for you. All right? I mean, as we go forward with iOS certifications, new releases, new features. I know it's a pain to upgrade. I know it's always a cost, and people don't always think that there's a lot of perceived benefit in it. However, for us to work together and you to get the best return on your investment for the dollars that you pay us to support you, upgrading is really core and should be part of your strategy. So, I mean, for those of you on 8.5, if you're still asking for support, CA does have what is called an extended support program. However, it typically only runs for a year after the end of support date, which means if you are in extended support, then likely in November of 2016, that will end. So it is kind of important that you do the upgrade and get to be current. Now, if you're on 8.6, which I noticed quite a few customers were, so I was very happy about that. That 8.6, we are probably going to start working on the end of service announcement. So once I send out the end of service announcement, we typically give a 12-month window. Right? So it doesn't mean that we're going to do an end of support or an end of service in the next few months, but if you're on 8.6, I would ask you to start your planning process to move to 8.7. As soon as we get the 8.7.1 plan done, I do intend to say start the clock ticking on the 12-month end of service announcement for 2E86. So keep that in mind. I know everybody on the call is that if you're on 8.5, 8.6, this should be top of mind for you. And doing your upgrading, putting it into your schedule and getting it done. Now, 8.7 came out in 2014, so you've already had almost 2 years to do that planning, so I'm not sure what's holding you back. If you have a blocker that is a technical blocker that says you can't upgrade because you need something, then we need to know about that because, you know, we're incented to help you upgrade to the latest releases to make sure that you're getting all the availability of all the latest functionality. And I have a few slides on 8.7. There is a lot of functionality 8.7 that you're missing out on if you're on 8.5 and 8.6. Next slide, please. There is two things that we're doing in the 8.6 and 8.7 world. So, you know, not that we're all 100% focused on 8.7.1, which we will soon be turning our focus to. What we are planning to do is do a PTF rollup. So for those of you that like our IBM mainframe type terminology, a program temporary fix, otherwise it's a fix. And so for everybody that's been taking fixes over the last 2 years on 8.6, 8.7, what we are planning to do is to do a roll-up PTF release that says, hey, you know, no longer will you have to go out and you'll say, oh, I'm on 8.7, but I need this PTF and that PTF. Hopefully what we're going to do is we're going to roll them up, we're going to test them all together, and then you can say, okay, I need 8.7 and I need the latest PTF roll-up fix. You download that, apply it, and you'll be 100% current. On the 8.6, the roll-up of the PTF will probably be our last investment in the 8.6 release. Remember, I'm going to start the clock ticking on that. So what I really want to do is I want to have our engineering efforts focused on 8.7.1 and new development. And so I'm kind of hoping that you guys will move up and off of 8.5 and 8.6, and that will decrease our support cost there, have you on 8.7, so that if we do a fix, it impacts a lot of customers, not just a few. So we do have some roll-up PTFs in the work. Look forward to those. They will be announced on the CA community. If you're not on the CA community, please sign up for it. You do not need a CA customer account ID to be in the communities, which means that you as an administrator can join and your engineers can join that community. So if you have people that are using Plex, they don't have to have a CA account to be able to cut support tickets to be able to participate in the community. So please, as administrators, pass it out to the folks that are using 2E and let them join the community and participate. And that way, we have more people in the community, we can get more votes on good ideas also. Next slide, please. All right. So I'm going to jump through the 8.7 release highlights just for a matter of time. There is so much in 8.7, so when I was going through the 8.7 release text and pulling the information together, there are so many features, next please, that I threw in 3 slides of all of these features and all of these enhancements that you guys, if you're not on 8.7, are missing out. And then next slide, please. And a lot of the work that came to me and my engineering team told me about in the slides was this DDS to DDL type database conversions. So there is so much in 8.7. Please, if you're on the previous release, go look at the release notes, take a look at it, figure out how you can use it, and get to the 8.7, because 8.7 is where you're going to need to be to get to 8.7.1. Next slide, please. So remember, these are just highlights of 8.7. There's so much in it. We highly recommend that you go take a look at it. Now, this is the standard CA roadmap slide. So this is how we kind of say, okay, this is what we've done. So you go to 8.7. 8.7.1 is the targeted next release for 2E. It is still in planning. We're still going through all of the ideas. When I started looking at the ideas, I was kind of surprised myself at how many hadn't been looked at and researched, and so it is taking longer than my original plan was to have it done by the end of the month. However, I do think that what we have is we have a pretty good set of core goals on important features and fixes to put in for 8.7.1. Top of mind that everybody's asking for is iOS 7.3 certification, which means all of its components. So everything that runs on the iOS 7.3 box in your 2E environment. So if I don't call out the database specifically like I normally would in my other product lines, that's why I mention that. Now, what we have come up with is there was quite a few enhancement requests that have come out of the global CA2E and CA Plex user community conferences. And so we went back and we took a look at those, and there was a lot of them after the DDS to DDL. There was some work that still had to be there, but there's a lot of things that we could do to improve the ability to work with your databases. Optimize for net and Rhodes is one of the most common ones. So right now, when you go out and you do a fetch, you're doing a select asterisk, and it's bringing back lots of information you don't need, which is overhead that you have to deal with and, causes performance issues. Partition support. So this one also received a lot of great votes in that there are people that have databases that have grown to certain extents that they have so much data that we need to partition them. And so that just kind of makes sense as we grow and we become more mature and we have a lot more data to manage, and data 10% a year is an easy answer to say we're going to grow by. And so there's just lots of wonderful things in there. Select by column name. This one also, I actually find this one interesting that it doesn't support this, where right now it does a select asterisk and it returns all the columns, and that way you have to handle the return of all the columns when all you may need is a primary key in one foreign attribute that says, okay, I want to get the first and last name that's associated with this user ID, that you get everything in the employee table. So we are going to try to do that in performance. That should add to performance. That should add to maintainability, should act for flexibility. So you can already tell that the 8.7.1 goals is going to be about improving your experience to work with your database, both in power, performance, flexibility, and to reduce your cost and maintenance. We also have a lot of work that we're trying to do on the web services and updating the WSDLs for your SOAP web services. There are things that we're doing in 2E to make your programmers' lives better. So not just in the SQL, but to make it easier to use, easier to upgrade, and to do some better native string handling. There's a challenge here that we have, is that there's a lot of native string things you can do in RPG. There's some that you can do in COBOL, but there's not a lot that you can do in both. So, it's a very difficult decision when you have a model-based tool that says I should be able to generate the same code either in RPG COBOL, how to use things that are optimized in only one language. So we're going to do some investment. We're going to do some research. We're going to take a look at what we can do to leverage things that are optimized by language, but no commitments here because this is going to be research. And really what we need to do is the core philosophy for the model-based tools is be consistent so that we can generate across the different languages. And I realize if you're only in an RPG shop, that would sound limiting, but really for portability, transportability, and support all customers, we need to do that. Architectural runway is a safe term. That means that we're going to invest a lot in stuff that you're not going to see in the release. So architectural runway is that we got to do some changes on the entity side. We have to do some research. We have to do some design. And it will be part of the 8.7.1 work effort, but when 8.7 comes out, it's not going to be in the release notes, right? It's going to be things that we need to do to put ourselves in position for an 8.7.2 release. So that's the core. That's where we're headed with 2E. It's going to be a lot of work. Your engineering team that supports you on the backside really believes that these are the right things to do, and we want to make sure that we're very focused on delivering upgrades that provide value that you're going to want to upgrade to, right? If we're not providing a significant value in our upgrades, and that's why you're not upgrading, that's a challenge for us, because we really want you to take the latest functionality and really be able to get the most out of your investment. Now, a big challenge has come up with the Web 2E web option. I have received lots of comments about it. I've had lots of discussions about it. Actually, you can go back to the other slide, back up one. So on the web option, that is not on the roadmap. And there's a reason that it's not on the roadmap is I'm not 100% sure what to do with the Web 2E option. that when we look at it, there was a lot of money invested in it, and it got a lot of complaints, and it seemed to run out of gas. And so, I mean, we could spend a tremendous amount of money trying to make it happen. And I appreciate the question from Marcelo, who sent in his question yesterday. It says, what are we going to do about the Web 2E option? It's a very difficult one because we have a fork in the road that we can take. And right now, with the team size I have and the investment budget I have, I'd rather do the SQL improvements that will improve for everybody's life and make the product much more powerful and solid. That means that I don't necessarily have a big team to go chase the Web 2E option and do a lot of enhancements in that direction. I also, because we have a fork in the road, we do have a lot of work that has been done in web enablement in the Plex product. And so there is an opportunity to convert your model from 2E to Plex, move so that you're not totally dependent on the System I platform, that you can do more distributed development, you can build applications that run off of the System I, and you can take your applications that you've built on the System I that you've been running for years and years and years. If you move them over to the Plex model with a conversion, then you can use the web enablement that comes with Plex and achieve, I think, what you want to do. So in the next release, 8.7.1, we're going to focus on SQL. During this time on the Web 2E option, what I'm going to suggest is that you please take a look at Plex and see if Plex is a better fit for you long term, and then look at converting your models. I mean, both tools are very similar. However, Plex has a lot more power in the distributed space and on the web front ends, and there are web options that are sold by two of our partners, CM First is one of them, that will really help you get there faster than if we did a lot of development and then we waited for you for a year to upgrade. So, you know, your quickest way to that objective is to do this conversion. So what I'd like to do now is I would like to turn it over to John, and John will talk about that conversion opportunity, and if you're looking to webify your 2E applications today, how this option may be the best path for you. John?
Great. Okay, thanks very much, Steve. This is Mark. I want to grab a audience poll question while we're switching over the microphone from Steve to John. Thank you very much, Steve, for that heartfelt and very timely presentation on 2E Roadmap. Our next poll question is, are you currently using 2E for A, new 2E applications, B, to maintain existing 2E applications, or C, there aren't any applications currently, really being maintained because D, we're basically in the process of or trying to retire our CA2E assets. And then we're going to hear from John Rhodes, who is the CTO and Managing Director of CM First Group. John's an industry expert in several areas of app development, including managing technical debt. He will share and review what 2E customers and management are doing. So the vast number of people are, well, we did allow multiple responses, so the vast number of you are maintaining, and certainly more than half are also developing new apps. So it's interesting that there's very few people on the call who either are not doing anything or are actively trying to retire 2E. So at this point, I'd like to bring John in. We get John's slides coming up here, and he's going to talk about transformation and modernization, and actually have some live material to show you what things look like in the new world.
All right, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, I'm going to go through some PowerPoint and then a live demonstration. And first thing I'd like to talk about is that, I think people are looking at their 2E apps. We're getting questions from different people. Are you going to replace and rewrite your 2E app? Well, that's certainly a possibility, but it takes a lot of time. And the fact is, more than half people that go to SAP are not happy about that choice. So it's certainly an option, but it's a very large and complicated option. Doing nothing at all is certainly an option too, but we like to think that there's a better way to improve what you already invested in. That means improve what you have in 2E, or if the time is right, you'd like to look at replatforming, we can help with that to replatform to CA Plex, start generating Java apps that run across different platforms and produce responsive web front ends. But we're not in the business necessarily of helping people migrate out of 2E. We're in the business of helping people with 2E and Plex get the most out of it. And we had some interesting developments there. We have new courseware out for 8.7 that is also being used by CA that has exercises in 8.7 around SQL and around the new features of 8.7. I'm pretty happy with that. We have specific courseware around SQL migration, around web option if you're looking at that, and using web services. And we can help people with DevOps too. DevOps is something that many people have put in place in 2E by using Implementer and other tools, or CA2E CM. If you haven't, now might be a good time to get that in place, maybe along with some automated testing. And lastly, if you need help with any 2E development, we're available for that. Okay, but I want to talk about replatforming because we're getting more and more interest in that area. And when people come to us, we usually get a scenario that looks like this, that there's thousands of screens, so they're big systems. They've been developed over 10, 20 more years. And so there's a lot to consider. The system is working well, or you wouldn't be considering preserving it. But the management has said it's got to run on different platforms, eventually at least. It's got to have a responsive user experience. That's run on a tablet, maybe run on a phone as well. It's got to make use of APIs. And we want the future to follow the current tech standards. And beyond that, budgets are always tight, and we don't want to take any risk. And whatever we do, the developers we have to understand what the current technology is. We're not going to end up with a kind of a Joe Ball Frankenstein monster of something that no one can maintain because it's been translated from COBOL into Java, and just it's a mess there. So these are what we hear from people, and around that demand, we've come up with a solution called CMM3. And the idea of that is to extend the economic life of the 2E code you've developed. So we take the legacy 2E action diagram, we automatically migrate that into CA Plex along with the associated schemas, the associated panel designs, all the validation rules, arrays, really everything that makes up your model in 2E will become part of your model in Plex. Because the models are very similar in many respects, that is a very possible and straightforward thing to do. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, is that solution. And we believe a solution around these areas requires 5 things. First is it's got to be 100% automated, at least in terms of the 2E code. If you look at a solution that's 90% automated, then that means a lot of manual effort, a lot of cost, and a lot of risk. 2E is a very productive way to maintain applications, and the solution has to be equally productive. Third, as I mentioned before, the result has to be understandable and maintainable, or you really achieve nothing. If what you have runs in Java, but it can't be understood, what good is it? 4, I think that's a requirement of any IT project these days, that it's got to be a guaranteed and predictable cost and timeline. It's not something that you're going to get an open-ended blank check from management to say, go off and redo this in Java. It's just not going to work. And people want to get responsive web apps and APIs at the end result. That's not a follow-on project. That really is the project. To turn what you have running currently on 5250 into something that is running in a web app environment and accessible to APIs and can consume APIs. So that's the goal of CMM3. And the way it works is you give us your 2E model. We work with you on access to your COBOL and RPG and other CL programs, other assets. Depending if you want to re-platform immediately or you want to keep on the IBMI for a period of time or maybe forever, we analyze that with you. We do initial migrations. We look at the results. We fine-tune the user experience with you. And then we say, okay, we're all good with this. And then we do what we call a final migration. We take your 2E model and then produce a Plex model from that and give you the Plex model with the generated code. And we produce a guaranteed result. This will function as it did under 2E. Okay, and I think the defining thing about our process is it takes weeks, not months and years, and it's for a fixed cost, and there is a guarantee behind it. So at the end result, you have something that's in CA Plex, some model-based environments you can maintain, generating Java, most typically C# is a possibility, and a web and mobile interface. And you can re-platform that, if you wish, to Linux or Windows or Unix, or certainly leave it on the IBM. And in fact, many people choose to do that, at least for the transition period. Okay, and then the results, again, are in CA Plex. The great thing about CA Plex is it does have the ability to generate to multiple databases. It was built around generating to Oracle and SQL Server, as well as DB2. So it can make use of a modern database. We can generate responsive user experience with CM Web Client that runs on any modern browser or device. It can make use of API interfaces natively. It has inheritance built into the product, which as Java and C# do, a very important advance in programmer productivity that in 2E we just don't have due to the nature of 2E. It's something that was developed so many years ago. You can also start to use Eclipse and Visual Studio more effectively. There's versioning built into Plex, and it lends itself to being part of automated build schemes. You can deploy to Amazon Cloud, for example. We have customers that have done that and chosen that option, or, of course, your own private hardware. And the build productivity is very strong, just like it is in 2E. So we think it's a really good result to get from this process. And I'll show you in the demo. This is the result you'll get out of the box with a migration. So it is an interface you'll be able to see that can resize itself to the size of the device, so it can run equally well on a desktop browser or a tablet, iPad, or Amazon tablet. Okay, so let me take you through a very quick demo. I know we don't have much time, so it's going to be kind of an overview. We can always go through this in more detail later. We'll just contact us. Okay. Okay, I can take you quickly through a demonstration model that is an insurance application that's running on the IBM I. Okay, and it's a very typical application. This is a very small one. That's something you can get your hands around. It's also something we can supply to someone who's interested in this process. You can take this model, you can get the results, you can kind of poke in under the covers and see what's going on. So we have database relations, and these are the heart of 2E, and really need to be the heart of what gets migrated, because these relations drive all kinds of automated validations on screens and other automated processing. So it's important that all these relations come across, and we also get a schema that is identical to the current schema so that you can, if you choose, remain on DB2 and not get level check errors. Okay, so I'll show you how the schema comes across. And with the schema, let me just drill into one of these guys, maybe the person here. Just zoom into it. You have different access paths. The physical file has to come across. Currently, that's going to be in DDS, of course. That's going to need to come over and be transformed into SQL. And then we have a number of functions here. And things like display files are usually the heart of the system, work withs, as they're called. And we have, with that, we're going to have different things like device designs. I hope that loads. There it goes. With the device design, there's lots of validation rules that go into these designs and have to be transformed, and prompting and things of that nature as well. And then lastly, we have the action diagram. So with the action diagram, we have coding that looks a lot of times like this. It'd be a very typical one that is looking for the subfile selection character. If it's select, do this. If it's edit, go in and edit it. If it's address, jump off to a different address table. Okay, so it's important that all this code comes across exactly as is. These calculations come across exact, because even a small difference or small problem can cause large differences in application behavior and cause a regression test cycle that could take a lot of time. Okay, so that's kind of how the app works. Let's go ahead and just run the display file. So I want to show you how this comes across into Plex and how an interface that generates, looks like this, comes into Plex and then generates a responsive web app from that. Okay, so let's go over to Plex now. Here's our CA Plex interface. I'm not going to go through a lot of detail here, but I want to just say that all the entities that you have in Plex or in 2E will come across into Plex as is. So we'll see a list of entities just like I see in 2E. So I can quickly find my entities that I know and love in the 2E world. In this case, like person. I can see that here. I can also do, in Plex I can do diagrams. So I can create an ER diagram like right here showing how the person table relates to agent, relates to application, relates to address. So I can not only see lists, I can also see things graphically. And along that, I'll do the same thing with functions. So I can see my work with person here, and we looked at the screen design, the action diagram for. I can see how that calls different functions, work with address, and calls the edit person, etc. So I got some additional abilities into CA Plex that make it easier to develop, easier to visualize code. Okay, but if I look at the action diagram, for example, in this work with person, and I go and focus on the code that we just looked at in 2E, here's where the top select is select versus edit versus address. You see that this code is understandable. Okay, this looks very similar, I think, to what's in 2E. You can make your own decision there. But it's something that a 2E developer with a little bit of training can maintain and can develop from. And then the important thing is, though, this code generates Java, okay, as well as the panel design. So not only do we have the code, we also have the panel design. Let's pull this up. Okay, showing the panel design there. Okay, so once I get a migrated model, I don't have to do anything to it. I can just immediately go to generating and building it in Java and then show it down on the web. So let me show the results of that. Okay. So what I would do is I would generate and build in Java, and I end up with an application that looks like this. Okay, so here's all the entities that make up my example application. I can select different functions. Okay, I can quickly see and switch between different open functions. One thing I noticed with 2E is people have 4 or 5 50-50 sessions open. They're always looking and switching between them and trying to copy and paste information between them. Cool thing about a browser-based environment is you can have multiple browser sessions open, multiple windows open, and see a lot more information than you can from a 5250 screen. Okay, so I get all the functionality I had on 2E. I get some additional functionalities, like I can export what I see on the screen to Excel, for example. So here's the states that have been imported to a CSV. Okay, so every screen can have this capability and let my end users just quickly get the ability to do some Excel analysis if they wish on what's in the old screens. Okay. Let's look at some other stuff here. One thing I can also do is I'm not limited to what came over initially, is I can start to create rich web apps that kind of deviate from what I had in 2E by combining the 2E functionality and making new Plex-style functionality, new web-style functionality that makes things even easier to use by the end user. So in this case, you can see how different functions, like the work with is combined with an edit record, okay, is combined with a component that shows a Word document. Okay, so these 3 components can be combined on the same screen. Again, just impossible to do in 2E and impossible to do in 5250 really, but quite easy to do in a web environment. Okay. Also doing things like, let's look at the original version of the screen. I can export the information not only to Excel but also to PDF, for example. I can look at the addresses, and then I can incorporate things like geomapping into this quite easily. So I can see the map visually of where this address is, not limited to just seeing a text representation of that. Okay. Back to persons. Okay, things like sending emails is possible. Okay, so really you have just a lot more you can do with a web application, and this web application is responsive. So if I wanted to see this on an iPad mini, I'm going to go up to my browser here. I got a little plugin installed to see it rendered as a different device. And I'll pick the go down and pick the iPad mini out here. And I got a little less screen real estate, so I got a little less I can see, but it does run. It runs effectively. And the tabs will collapse and be stacked so I can maintain many open tabs, and I can see different options down here. So you not only get a web app, you get a responsive web app. I know that's been one of the difficulties with web option is creating responsive applications has been a difficult thing to do, but in Plex that's a quite simple thing to do. Okay, I suspect I'm running out of time, so I think I'll stop there. I just want to show one more thing, that this migrated application you're seeing today has been migrated completely off the IBM, is running completely on Windows and SQL Server. It could have easily also gone to Linux and Oracle, for example. But just to show that, let me just show you the SQL Server Management Studio. It's running on my local PC. Okay, so here's my data. So my schemas have come across. Okay, I did not change the column names. I left them the same, but I could have changed the names to make them more meaningful. But the data is there. The data has been migrated. And it all runs and runs very well. People always ask about performance, and performance is a concern, but I have never seen a situation where the performance cannot be overcome by, some tuning of the database or application layer. All right, so here's an example of an application that's been totally lifted from the IBM from DB2, put on a different platform, and runs per specification. Okay, so if you're interested in this, we can look at this in more detail. Okay, I think
great job, John.
Yeah. Okay, I'll stop there and then go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, you're correct. We're running a little bit short on time. I want to be sensitive to the audience's sense of that. Thank you, and I encourage everyone to keep an open mind and decide for yourself if what you've seen John go through in a live, being very brave there with a live demonstration. I'm going to move to our fourth question, which is if you were to modernize your current CA2E system using the CMM3. Oh,
yeah,
yeah. And you're going to do the solution. What additional information would you like to have answered about your system? So, I mean, John was, running through things very, very rapidly. So, is it the length of the process that you'd like to know more about? Detailed pricing estimates, including what's fixed, fixed prices, guaranteed fixed, length of time. Number 3 would be the Plex training content. You're right. There is retraining that's going to be involved if you migrate. And we have foundational as well as advanced courseware in Plex as well. Are you interested about the % of automated functions? That is basically the free service that we do at the beginning of discovery. We can analyze all the function objects in your models and tell you write down what % can be automatically regenerated in Plex. And the last one. Important one is what resources are going to be needed from our team, from the customer team, which is a very real part. And although these projects are a lot shorter than lots of the other options, we still have that. That certainly is a concern. And so pricing estimates are about 4 out of 5 people who responded. And then followed closely by training, and so as expected, we can't. What this begs is, if you're truly interested, we have, as it kind of dovetails into the last process that we have for everybody, which is an exercise that we call for the community, which is it's a four-letter word called MINT, M-I-N-T. And we're going to ask for you to indicate any or even all of the following four letters, which would describe your feelings about the community, where you're at in the community going forward. So the letter M means meeting. Would mean that you would want to have a discovery meeting about the future of your assets, a 10-minute call. We would also do the function object analysis and show you with a fixed price what that would look like for that portion of the migration. If you answer I, it means that you want an introduction. Maybe you're not the right person in your organization. Maybe you have somebody else who should be on this call who wasn't on it today, or perhaps there's someone who is in a different organization outside of your own that should be open and should be listening to the information that's on this. And N person is a newsletter, meaning that you just want to stay in touch. We've got a really good CA2E focused newsletter that's got a lot of blog information. We work closely with the CA community as well too. But the newsletter means that you want that CA-focused newsletter, and we've got a senior consultant, Mark Schroeder, who writes the blog on that. Last would be T, which means I want to talk or I want to write, and by that I mean I'm liking what Steve Solomon said this morning. I want to join the community, or I've not been active. I joined it a long time ago and I haven't been active. So that's a way for you to participate in the community. It takes a minute to register. So M is meeting, I is introduction, N is newsletter, and T is talk. And our final, as we come up here, for the people who are M's and desire to have that discovery call and have a discovery call with us between now and the end of September, we're going to draw out one customer out of all those meetings, and we're going to award 2 VIP tickets as well as travel expenses to the next CA2E Plex conference, which is going to take place. It's going to be the 9th one. It'll be taking place in the fall of 2017. You've heard it here first, and that'll be up to $3,000 value. So if we get, and now we're going to go into Q&A. I've got one question that came up from an audience member that is for Steve, which was looking at hearing a rumor that Oracle has announced that they're no longer going to support Java. Do you have any information about that, Steve, to share with the community at this time?
No, I don't. I've seen the same trends and comments in the industry press. As you guys know, that Oracle acquired Sun, which acquired Java, and has been the core sponsor about it. But you also please realize that IBM has gone, the Java and is drink to drink and is really supporting it. So I don't think that's going to be an issue long term, but that's more of an industry issue than specific. I don't think it's going to impact anything that we're doing in the near term. But I will definitely go take a look at it. And if anybody else learns more and wants to post something on the community, I'd love to see that too.
Okay, great. So you have Steve is laying the gauntlet down to you to join in a discussion like this. I've seen about the Java plugins, which are browsers are clearly moving away from on the rumor mill. Next question is for John Rhodes. What percentage of your customers are on 2E versus Plex?
That's a good question. I don't have a precise answer for that because some have both. I'd say it's roughly half and half. That would be a rough guess.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say that. And I would say that also that about 10% of the customers do have both. How to do it. Next one is for Steve. Can we do a skip upgrade from 8.5 to 8.7?
I apologize. I should know the answer to this one, and I don't. This is when I have to get hold of VJ, and I don't know if VJ is still running along. Hopefully he is, and he'll post an update in the chat. And I believe I'll have to get that confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you want to go from 8.5 to 8.7.